Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our second Data Plus Women DC event. We're so excited to have all of you here. Just a little bit of logistics to start off. The bathroom is in the back and out there.
It's out by the elevators.
Out by the elevators. Just like
that's very specific.
yeah. And then there's drinks and pizza as you found. Hopefully, just feel free to get up and grab more. Just to introduce the co-organizers. So I'm Erin Simpler-Kellett. We got Brittany Fong, Emily Kund, and Julie. Yeah, thank you. So welcome. To start off, so we got some really great presenters today. To start off, we're going to start with announcements. So this would be any events you want to promote, jobs if you're hiring, anything like that. And to start us off, I would like to turn it over to Jennifer at Chief. Thank you in particular to Chief for the space and the food and drinks and everything, all the support.
We're really excited to have you guys here for the second meetup. The first one was a great success, and so really, really happy when Erin and Brittany ran it past me that we do a second one here. So we're happy to have you here. We do a lot of meetups at our space. We want you to feel comfortable. If you have questions about Chief or questions about any positions we have open, there's a bunch of my business cards in the back, and I'd be happy to sit down and talk with you while you're still here, or reach out to me via email or phone call. Really happy to have you here, and welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, any other announcements? Yes.
Hi, I'm Mandy Trod, and I'm co-founder of Women Data Scientists DC. And so there are a couple of events that are coming up. Debugging the Gender Gap is being shown for free at Capital One on Friday, April 8th at 1 p.m. And there is a free day-long Spark conference on Saturday, April 30th, also at Capital One. Cool.
Hi, I'm Kate Rubinowitz, and I'm the data lead for Code for DC. And Code for DC is a nonprofit organization of civic hackers, and we work with nonprofits in the city to analyze data and create applications to benefit the city. We meet every other Monday in Chinatown, so if you're interested, talk to me or go to our meetup page, Code for DC. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Cesar Pico. I am the co-host with the wonderful Emily Kund. Wonderful, wonderful. For the Tableau government user group. We're known as GovTug. So anyone here that are Tableau users and also in the government space, we are having another event. It is May 19th. Got some great speakers.
Super excited.
Super excited. We've got, Andy
Andy
Kriebel and Jeff Mills from Tableau. They're both speaking on sourcing.
Resourcing and some of the challenges and how we can overcome that in the government space.
So finding a Tableau data rock star. So if you guys are interested, also if you're in the government space and working with Tableau and you've got something you want to show off or even something interesting to say, please just come see me. I'll be happy to talk about it. It is Tug Government, right? On Twitter? At Tug Government on Twitter. So please follow us. So thanks. May 19th.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, I do have a couple announcements for people to promote things that people couldn't be here tonight. So I'll do those. There's an event on May 17th called Potential Unleashed: How Mentors Are Changing the Future. It's hosted by the Business Women's Giving Circle of Northern Virginia, and they extended the invite to all of our members. See me if you want more information. I can put you in touch with the people organizing it. There's also a Women Who Code Hackathon, April 30th through May 1st. They're looking for both projects and for attendees and participants. So if you have a project idea that you've been working on that might be good for a hackathon, I can also put you in touch with that organizer. Great. So a little bit about what we're going to be doing here today. So we're going to start with our lightning talks by different women in the data industry, all different fields. I'm really excited. And then we're going to save questions for our presenters until they've all presented, and then you'll get a chance to ask all the questions you have. And then we're going to have a small group discussion session, similar to last time if you were here last time. Thanks. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, so I have to turn it on.
Should turn that one off.
One of them, can you hear me? This is working? Or maybe I should use now. No. All right, I'll take this one.
How about now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I should be projecting something weird with the resolution here.
Can make this work. Okay. So we have 10 minutes and like 5 or 6 questions to answer, and I'm going to try and talk really fast because I have no idea how long this is going to take. But I'm Catherine Madden. You might have seen my job title as Data Doodler of Catherine Madden Visual. I made that up. It's not a real job. But I have like an infographic. Casey, do you know why it's like so blurry? That should I just like unplug it and do it again?
Yeah, no, that's no, it'll work just fine.
Okay. I needed to like draw out what I did and what I do and how I got to what I'm doing because it just like is very confusing for people otherwise. Okay, this is good.
The resolution is on.
Okay, here we are. So if you guys can see this, can't see it, it's on my website. I'll share a link afterwards. But right now I'm doing this thing where I design things with data and I doodle and I draw in a digital format. So it's a bunch of words that start with D. But I started out back in 2006, 2008 doing graphic design. I started in print media, doing some like layouts. I did a little bit of data viz at the time. And then I moved into a little bit more interactive user experience design. And then started at Deloitte in 2012 and realized that it was really a good skill to add to be a good like communicator and visual facilitator on top of the design skills that I had. So I learned how to do graphic recording, and then more recently I picked up a iPad and started doing graphic recording on the iPad, which then turned into like this whole new world of fun and exciting work that I do now. So people like pay me to go to events and draw the conversation and then have pictures of it at the end of it. And I never knew that would be like a viable thing to do, but here I am. So this is where I am now, but before when I was at Deloitte, I was doing a lot of kind of like data visualization analytics, because the second question is how do I use data at my job? So right now I'm not really doing much with data at my job because as a designer and a more visual person, my role before was to kind of guide developers and data scientists to create like the right interface, combining user experience and visual design that's effective and impactful for the end users. And a lot of times we're doing like BI products that are for like a small group of users, like an executive at a company, and we work through developing personas and making it right for them. So right now, the data that I use is more just conceptual, like ideas from my head that I draw in a visual framework, which you will see in some of my slides here. So like this is the type of data I use now, which isn't very technical, obviously. But I still think it's a way to incorporate data into my work, and I'm actually looking for just a side project if anyone has a really cool data set and really cool analytics that they want to apply some good design and data viz to, because I kind of miss it. So next thing is challenges about being a woman in data. So I don't really think I have experienced like discrimination or anything as much as you might have heard. I think maybe women in tech have more of a problem, but women in data, I don't know. I mean, maybe for me, my story is different, but I'd be interested to hear what other people have to share. But one of the challenges is I think there's just less people, less women in general in the field, so it's kind of hard to find your tribe. And ladies that you can like just talk data with, but also be like, oh my god, where'd you get your necklace? And talking about like having kids and what that's gonna be like when that happens for me. So what I try to do is just kind of, when I find those people, just like hang on to them and schedule time on a regular basis. I think I saw Silky, hi, Silky, one of my former coworkers at Deloitte. When we had a small group of women that were working together, we would get together on a regular basis to try and kind of like foster like a community that's supportive of each other, and we can talk about all kinds of things, and we just like, you know, get each other a little bit better. And I think that's tremendously important to just feel like you have people to talk to and to confide in, and also just like talk about superficial things without feeling like you're, I don't know, like, yeah, like vain or, I don't know, just, yeah, sometimes I want to talk about my jacket, you know? Okay, so next week I'm giving a TEDx talk at the CIA, and I'm super nervous, but I thought it'd be really fun to test out some of the content that I'm going to share there because I haven't done this talk before. And part of the things that we're going to share in our lightning talks is what are some qualifications, skills, and technical tips that you might want to share with this group. So for the TED Talk, I'm going to talk about drawing data and why I think it's so, it's changed my career so much and why I think it has the power to do the same for other people. And this is kind of like midway through the talk, but there's 3 truths about visualization that I learned in my time at the CIA when I was a contractor there. So the things that I want to share kind of are based off of these truths. I think the reason that I love drawing data. The first thing is, if you can't describe it, you probably don't understand it. And I ran into this problem all the time with clients asking me like to visualize a concept, but then they'd be like, just figure it out. And as a designer, I'm like, I can try my best, but if you don't tell me what it is, and you can't describe it, then I'm gonna have a really hard time with it too. And the story I tell is, when I started there, we were working on a workforce analytics project, and it's a really, really complex agency that's got like not your typical org chart. And people were asking to overlay some of the Q12 data that they collected on top of, you know, the way that they were organized to see if there was any trends. And people couldn't describe to me what the organization actually looked like. So we had to draw it out and really understand like how complex and how messy it really was in order to be able to understand and analyze the information that we have. The next thing is, it doesn't always have to look pretty. I actually stole this drawing from a girl named Jessica Hagee. She does a lot of really cool, funny, like pithy data doodles. And I think the title of her index card that had this on it was Regarding Poor UX and Sexy Assassins, meaning like just because something's pretty doesn't mean it's good. So if you're like attracted to a person, they could be an assassin, so be careful. But a lot of times people think just by making something pretty, it makes it good. And as a designer, that's kind of frustrating because it needs to be functional. And the example for that is I was working on a really complex big data project at the agency, and it was just a mess trying to show like network maps and diagrams, and I kept trying to fight the urge to clean it up and make it look more organized and easier to comprehend and understand, when really what we needed to do was kind of demonstrate and display the mess that it was in order to help people find the threads and get a big sense of like the scale of the issue. And the last thing is constraints don't equal excuses. So if you've ever worked in the government space, which I'm sure many of you have, you don't have all three of these at one time. You're not gonna have like the right project idea, the data, and the tools that you need to do it. But that doesn't mean you can't get the job done. So if you're in a mission-based organization, especially one like the CIA, you have tons and tons of like crazy things you have to get done and you have to figure out a way. So those three things have kind of made me really inclined to drawing because you don't need any other tools other than your mind, a marker, and a piece of paper. And the example for this is an instance where I did graphic facilitation, but I'm running out of time, so I want to kind of jump to 3 ways that you can draw data and the benefits of it. So this is an example of like a sketch note that I did to help me think through what I was going to present in the talk. So the data is like information in my head, and the visualization is really just me drawing it on my iPad. But it's a really easy way to get clearer on an idea, become more creative about it, and ultimately it helps you be more collaborative with others. And so drawing to improve clarity, if you start without the distraction of other examples and the internet and everything else that you could look at for inspiration, and you just start with in your head, you're gonna be much clearer on what makes sense to visualize in a data viz project. So typically I'll start with the topic, go who, what, where, when, why around the outside, and then just build as many trees and branches and sub-branches as I can until I run out of space. And then I take this information, and to be more creative, I take like 1 or 2 of the branches and just try and visualize them and compare them on a scale. And there's so many different ways you can compare this, but the idea behind how this boosts creativity is the first idea you have is never gonna be the best one. Okay, and then the second idea you have is probably not gonna be the best one, so the more ideas you have, the better and more creative you'll be. So the last thing is if you draw and you show someone you're drawing instead of your like rough work in progress Tableau dashboard or PowerPoint deck, they're gonna help you and they're gonna be more collaborative and help you build it up. So if it's just natural tendencies. If someone shows you a Tableau dashboard that's not formatted and it has bad fonts and colors, you're only gonna be able to look at that. You're not gonna be able to see the big picture and the story and the goal for what they're trying to do. So even if it feels uncomfortable, I think you'll be surprised at how well people respond to a sketch and a well phrased description of your idea instead of the work in progress that you're not quite sure if it's going to work or not. And that is like the message here is we're all capable of doing this and thinking more creatively, and we're all capable of drawing. It's not a skill that is like just a talent that only special people have. It's a skill that you can build and practice and get better at. So shout out to my Skillshare classes. I have 2 of them. You can learn how to draw if you go to my website and take my classes. All right, thanks.
Hey, Caesar, would you be interested in driving? You can probably just stay right there too if you wanted to. Okay. So there are 3 camera modes. 1, you hit 1, and then you hit call, and that will zoom in on the speaker. Okay. 2, call, we'll do the screen time. 3, call, zoom out. 2, yeah, and you can manually zoom. And then you can also pan too. Cool. You have 1 viewer right now, and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. I'm just gonna check it something real quick. Yeah, 2.
It takes like a second. Yeah, it takes a second. There we go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Mandy Trod. I'm a senior data scientist at CyberX, and I'm here to talk about being a female data scientist in cybersecurity. So this is my Bitmoji. and shout out to my Cybrix. It's a small company here that's based in Fort Lauderdale. We have an office in Arlington and one in Herndon and one in Atlanta, because we kind of have like everybody's done. Okay, so what do? I use data science on big data to catch bad actors in cybersecurity, specifically using my background in graph theory. I have a master's in applied math and a PhD in biomathematics, in which I studied everything that is not cybersecurity and graph theory. So I studied graph theory, just not cybersecurity. For my PhD, I looked at the social networks of ants and prairie dogs. And in my master's, I looked at both Facebook networks and networks of men who have sex with men to look at HIV transmission. So anything but cybersecurity. Now, in my job, I look at big data, and lots of people ask me, what does big data mean? For me, some of the data sets that I look at have billions of rows per day or 2 to 3 terabytes worth of data per day, which is kind of daunting. Some of the skills that I use are programming in Scala, R, and JavaScript. I'm a big proponent of Shiny. And if anybody doesn't know what Shiny is, you should totally look up Shiny. It's awesome. It allows you to make browser-based applications in R. So it has like the stats and math background of R, but also beautiful visualizations of JavaScript. I also use my background in graph theory and linear algebra, mathematical reasoning, statistics, and my amazing Google skills. So this section of the talk is a little bit about answering questions about being a woman in data science and or cybersecurity. So how do I handle being the only female on the data science team? Most of the time, I don't even notice. The team that I'm on is amazing, and they treat me as a person and not a girl, which is awesome. And this is the second data science team that I've been on. The first one that I was on, it was a little bit more complicated. I felt a little bit more alone. This team that I'm on, I'm one of 6. So I'm the only girl on the data science team, but I'm one of 6. Last team I was on, I was the only girl, and I was one of 40. A little bit intense. Yeah. But in data science, data scientists are 12% female. Or 12% of the data scientists are female. So when I do notice, I get together with a bunch of amazing women in data science, like tonight, because I'm co-founder of Women Data Scientists DC. And so you can find us at Women Data Sci on Twitter, or we are also part of DC2, which is Data Community DC, and you can find us on their website as well. We will have another meetup coming up at the end of this month. The theme is up in the air. The main meetup, however, is going to be Women in Big Data, co-sponsored with Data Education DC and Data Innovation DC. And what do I recommend to newbies in data? One of our co-organizers for Women Data Scientists DC actually co-founded Data Society, which is this amazing data science classes organization that offers data science classes by subscription. So they're all online. And I helped teach one of the network classes for Data Society. And District Data Labs by Tony, that's run by Tony Omeda, and he's amazing. I definitely recommend putting together a data project. My boss specifically now said that like everyone who he goes through their resume, he looks for a data project. It doesn't matter about the experience or the background, but if you have a data project in your resume, you got your foot in the door. And to keep coming to all kinds of data meetups. So Data Community DC is huge and has tons of data science meetups all in one big umbrella. There are 8 of them, and so that means a possibility of 8 plus data plus women plus, so there's at least 10. data meetups per month. And last but certainly not least, thank you so much for your attention. You can find me at ALTrod on Twitter or email me. And I think we said we were going to do questions at the end. Yeah. So thanks so much.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I forgot. My slides are all available on Prezi, and Prezi is public. So just search for me and you'll find them.
All right. I'm really glad I didn't follow Catherine because she was like so cool and I just don't know if I can compete. But then the last time, okay. So I'm gonna take a breath. So I'm from, my name's Teresa Anderson. I'm from the Urban Institute. I'm a research associate. And I also am a doctoral student at George Washington University in Public Policy Administration, which is super exciting. Everyone loves it. So the Urban Institute is a really neat organization. It was founded in the 70s to basically evaluate the efforts under the Great Society under Johnson administration, but does all kinds of work in public policy and analysis. This is the mission of the organization, really looking at the power of evidence to improve lives and strengthen communities. The goal is to be rooted in facts, but with a larger mission to expand opportunities for people, reduce hardship, and strengthen physical health. So it's I don't know, it's a good organization. I really love it. And the thing is that Urban has had a lot of expansion of its kind of external facing data capacity in recent years. There's been a growth in data visualization, strengthening of survey research capacities with Qualtrics, which is like the best survey software ever. Doing more with big data. We've always had really strong micro-simulation models simulating, for example, there's this really cool one where you take survey data sets and you put them together in a micro-simulation model, and essentially what you do is look at if you change some conditions, how does it change the outcomes? So there's one that looks at from birth through age 40, if you change conditions in childhood, let's say you give everybody high quality early childhood education, how does that change makeup of society and people's economic and social outcomes down the line? There's really interesting work being done across the Institute. The National Neighborhood Indicators Project, we do technical assistance on data, lots of really neat things. So this is kind of the mix of work. So Urban is an unusual organization in this field because it's actually a hybrid of a contracting organization and a think tank. So on one hand, you have, I sort of it by program evaluation, it's kind of to stand in for the contracting capacity, because most of it is about evaluating policies and programs that affect, low-income, vulnerable, other populations that you're trying to do something good in the world, and also think tank policy research, where you're kind of doing knowledge production. So say you're taking existing data or information, or you're bringing together experts in a field, and you're trying to produce knowledge kind of along the lines of what you hear coming out of Brookings, other organizations like that. And so you get kind of both sides of the contracting work, where you actually have a client and they have a program and they want to know if their program's working, and you help them figure that out by looking at data. And then also the think tank work, and you get to the goal of informed policy analysis and recommendations. So I'm going to focus more on this program evaluation side because that's where I spend most of my time. And let's be involved in that. So I think of data broadly. So we do a lot of quantitative data. So a lot of it is statistical modeling. We use data and SAS. Some people use SAS, most people use data. Our micro-simulation models are more in SAS, but the economists use data. So you have the quantitative side where you're trying to understand quantitatively, is a program or policy working? You're looking at the outcomes of people who are in the program. You're looking at those who are not. You're looking at whether those outcomes are kind of aligning with what you would expect the program model to produce, and doing a quantitative analysis to see if that's occurring. On the other hand, qualitative data, also very important, where you're actually talking to people, actually, getting the information about whether things are rolling out in the way that you might expect them to happen. And this isn't just kind of journalistic, kind of anecdotal, whatever, but this is actually a really important aspect of informing the quantitative research, as the quantitative research is an important aspect of informing the qualitative research. And so that's why we're big proponents of mixed methods. So for example, on my project, it's called Accelerating Opportunity. It's for adults who have low basic skills. Maybe they finished high school, maybe they didn't, but they're below college level and they want to go and get a college credential. They want to go into healthcare or manufacturing or something. Normally, they would have to go and take a bunch of developmental classes. It would cost a lot of money. They wouldn't get credit for it. It would take forever. Most people don't actually get through developmental education and they're dropping out of college before they've even gotten into college. So this program allows people to co-enroll between the basic remedial classes and the 4-credit credential granting classes to be able to move through the program more quickly, and they get extra supports. There's a team teaching component, there's a whole bunch of stuff with that. And so what we end up doing in that case is we had qualitative and quantitative aspect. We were trying to understand, is the program resulting in better employment outcomes, is it resulting in better education outcomes for these people? And also, is it happening the way we think it should be happening? There was a model that was trying to replicate in this case. And so we were doing qualitative research and going and visiting colleges and visiting states that were actually doing this work and using and understanding, how are they recruiting students? How is it actually playing out? What are the issues that they're encountering? What are the characteristics of people that they're enrolling and the characteristics beyond what you could observe in the data set? And then going and doing the quantitative analysis and saying, hey, we know a lot about how this program works. So because we know this context, because we know these stories, because we know how they're really doing recruitment, we're going to adjust our quantitative analysis or statistical approach to be able to make sense in the context of this program. And so and then actually that went back and then informed our qualitative work, and we had some kind of iterative model. It's pretty neat. So what we often talk about in program evaluations of the quantitative work is the impact study, and the qualitative work is an implementation study, but really they're really tightly related in a lot of the work that I do. All right, so I'm gonna talk for a minute about how I got here. I don't know if you guys are interested or not, but I have a lot of interest in social justice. Broadly, that was what I wanted to do. I don't know how I wanted to do that. I thought maybe I'd go to legal services. Maybe I'd become a lawyer or did legal aid for a couple of years in DC doing housing law. It was really interesting. I loved the work. But there were so many systemic barriers, so many policy problems that we just couldn't touch from a legal perspective. So then, I went to a master's program in public policy. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I wasn't even a better credential. And then I ended up doing academic research on social programs. So that was a lot of looking at survey data, a lot of kind of reviews of existing work, and that led to a job in the federal government in the Economic Research Service at USDA, which is a research agency, where we were looking at state administrative data for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also used to be called food stamps, and unemployment insurance during the recession, and how people were using these two programs in conjunction. And that was great, it was awesome and all that, but it was kind of narrow, and I had broader interests, and also it was really distant from any real human being that ever actually might be influenced or affected by the work I was doing. So I figured, let's find a middle ground. And I found this really great job at the Urban Institute, which is applied policy research. So we go into the field and we talk to people and we think about, what's working, and then have kind of that mouthpiece to be able to translate that to policymakers and people who are actually making the decisions, and kind of get to walk in that middle area where we talk to people, we use the data, we crunch the numbers, and then we talk to people who make the decisions and say, hey, here's what we found. Here's how we can make things work better. All right, so I was told to give some advice, some challenges, some skills, so that's what I'm gonna do here. So I have a problem, which is, I don't know if it's a Leo or what it is, but I have this thing where I have to be a leader on everything, I don't know. So my advice to other people is also, don't be afraid to overstep. Take a minute to really take that leadership role in a project, and, honestly, in my experience, maybe 5% of the time somebody will smack you down, and 95% of the time people will be like, oh, a leader, that's great, okay, I'm gonna give you more stuff to do, and that'll help you move up in your trajectory as a woman. I think women are often afraid to do this. I think sometimes there's hesitation, there's concern that when you get smacked down, because it does happen sometimes by other women, that's embarrassing, and it's, this, but honestly, most of the time, people are just really glad to have a competent person step in and be willing to take that leadership role. The second thing is a challenge. So because I work in these qualitative and quantitative fields, in the Urban Institute, I did say this at the beginning, it's about 60% female, 40% male. But there's these qualitative quantitative spaces, and there is some kind of correlation of gender to the quantitative and qualitative work, where women are more apt to get put in the qualitative side, or feel like they want to get the qualitative side. I'm not saying it's imposed on them. And men are more on the quantitative side. So when you're somebody who wants to do both, which I am, it's hard not to get pigeonholed. You know, sometimes people are like, oh, we're working on a new project. All right, Teresa, you're really good at qualitative work. You can do that. And I'm like, well, wait, I actually really like the data stuff. I like the quantitative side too. So let's find a way to be able to do both. And sometimes it's hard not to get kind of pigeonholed in that way. And then skills. All right, so I'm kind of a generalist. Like, I can speak really knowledgeably about a lot of things, but I can also just go to specialists to be able to fill in those really technical details that I can't necessarily master, you know, everything on all sides, because I'm interested in like everything, and I like to do like everything. So, so I think it's useful to be a substantive generalist who can also be a methodological specialist and be able to speak knowledgeably about things, at least to a degree, then know that you need to ask for help. Thank you so much.
Hi guys. Give us a second to sync up. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not nearly as impressive as I actually was really excited when I was asked to go last, because then I was like, oh, I'll be the best because I'll know what everyone else presented on. And frankly, I'm a little concerned that I can't use PowerPoint. I didn't have a problem. So give it a second for it to try and PowerPoint for me. All right, I do enterprise performance management. Okay, so that is an area of data that nobody ever talks about. And what it means is I do this. You guys can read, so I'm just gonna talk over it while you read. So I build systems that aggregate data and also have a transactional component to them. So when you get right down to it, you know, you have these problems in federal and commercial, you have them everywhere, that say, oh, I'm gonna build a data warehouse and it's gonna be so awesome, it's gonna be wonderful, and it's gonna solve all of your problems. And the next thing you know, you go through 2 years of IT requirements and you've got the Lord of the Rings data warehouse that's gonna solve all of the business problems that have ever occurred in the history of the business. And, oh come on, this is the most exciting part. It's gonna solve all of the future problems too. And it never does. So let's talk about antiquated data management philosophies. So the one ring to rule them all was so hip when I joined the workforce in 2005. And everyone was building these awesome warehouses that were gonna solve everything. And I started my career on consulting, Deloitte. And what basically happened is I went from one project to the next, to the next, to the next with different vendors that were all doing the same thing. They were building one ring to rule them all. And then I said, that's stupid. It will never work, because by the time you put that into production, your requirements have already changed. Your business problems changed last week. Your users who are giving you requirements have no idea what you're talking about. Hell, you don't know what you're talking about. So when you're standing up there and you're like, hey, I got this really great idea, I'm gonna solve the world, and everyone's like, you know what, Emily, you don't really know what you're talking about. I'm like, you know what, maybe I do, because actually the only thing I need to know is what I know today. So for me, some of you work very closely with me at Deloitte, so you know this one's my favorite one. There are 2 types of data in the world, only 2. There is data you care about and data you don't care about. Stop building systems that manage data you don't care about. Your customers don't care about it, you don't care about it. Your $1 million project is gonna spend $800,000 of it dealing with data nobody cares about. And in the end, you're standing there and they're like, hey, Emily, that system that you built for us kind of sucks. And I'm like, well, your requirements kind of suck too. And when you get right down to it, it's not that the requirements sucked. It's not that they sucked. It's not that we sucked. It's not that the system sucks. It's that we're speaking different languages. So when you want to think about how to be successful, I was joking with Julie coming in, data and women who do data, we're like the closet organizers of data, right? We can tell you how to put your facts together, how to put your dimensions together in such a way that in the end, it's going to work. So if you check out my background, I have a background in cinema and photography. My degree is actually in cinematography. And my concentration is in gallery photography, which has done me really well. I started out as a graphics artist, and I got to where I was, and I'm actually not joking, it's kind of sad that I'm not joking. I didn't drink coffee, but I went around the perimeter where all the offices were, and I go, hi, John, I'm gonna go down to Starbucks. Would you like me to get you a cup of coffee? Oh, sure, Emily. I'd come home and my fiance at the time was like, Emily, if you don't stop spending your paycheck on Starbucks, we are going to have a problem. And I was like, it's gonna pay off. And one day it did. I popped in and Joe says to me, he goes, hey, do you know anything? And he looks at his whiteboard and he goes, about web servers? And I said, yes, I do. And he goes, do you know anything about the internet? And I said, yes, I do. He says, we have a problem. We have to build a proof of concept in Hyperion BI, Cognos, business objects, and an SAP derivative. And we have to do it by Monday, and the guy who was supposed to do it, he just quit, and we don't think he started it. Now, at this point, if you were like, I need you to pick up my kids, I'd be like, sure. Do they want coloring books? What do they like? Do you want me to get your dry cleaning? So I rode home on the metro that night with 4 laptops and a desktop and built a proof of concept in every single one of those based on my understanding of JavaScript. Yay, JavaScript. Amen, sister. So I was really nervous because it was going to go to the CIO of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. And this was in 2006. And it was the prototype for the first integrated law enforcement system post 9/11. It was what DHS was founded to do. And I was like, I've been out of school for 18 months. This is not going to go well. So we invited the vendors back, and we invited Hyperion back. And Hyperion was like, yo, Em, did you build this over the weekend? I was like, yeah, I don't know what to do. And I don't even know what BI means. And they were like, come work for us. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I did. And so now I work at Deloitte, and I'm a specialist master in Deloitte, which is by far the coolest job title I have ever had. But I do a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of speaking. I'm very active in the Oracle communities, especially ODTUG, which is the Oracle Developer, whatever ODTUG stands for. But what I do primarily is help women understand that we have to stop apologizing for being smart, okay? We have to stop apologizing for appearing to be lesser. There's a job in here there's that W, which was a company I owned, by the way. That's right next to that other job there. I'll be nice to them because I was a consultant for them to their client. I got a review from their client that said that I cry at work all the time. I can assure you I've never cried at work, ever. And I got a review about how I yell at everybody all the time, and some of you are on my project and maybe I do yell a little bit, but it's because I'm passionate. And then in my first review, they told me that they didn't believe the feedback that he had given me because it was juxtaposed with other feedback that was very positive. But they're just going to put it in my HR file. And I stood up, I adjusted my suit jacket, and I said, we're good. I'm not coming in tomorrow. I got in the car and I called my husband and I said, you're never going to believe what I did today. And he goes, did you quit your job? And I said, this is actually no fun anymore. I was like, actually I did. And he said, come home, we're gonna celebrate because you need to stop apologizing for being so damn smart. And that's what we all have to do. You're here, you care. Come on, let's support each other, let's support ourselves. And along the way. There's no reason for you to apologize for being yourself. Everyone gets a bad day. You don't have to apologize to it because I can assure you my boss doesn't apologize for it. That's all I got. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we can invite our presenters to come sit in the chairs.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought it was done. Yeah, no. Wait, you have to ask
Questions now, we got questions.
Do we have to sit in the order we present?
Oh.
You go. Yours was awesome. Yours was strong. I couldn't even draw. This is so sad. I was a graphics artist for like 6 months.
Favorite class? Does anybody have any questions? Please.
We're gonna make them up if you don't have questions.
Oh, yeah.
Way back.
Do we need an additional mic?
Sure. Hello, I'm Brittany. I think this is just so fascinating. I'm really excited for the information that you guys have given us. Amanda, can you talk about how you actually go about starting a data science project? Like, okay, I've got an idea, then what?
Oh, absolutely. We just had our meetup. So Women Data Scientists TC just had a meetup on Sunday that was for data projects to try and help people start a data project. First thing you need is a data set. That may not be obvious, so I thought I better say it. But there are tons of data sets on opendatadc.org, which is where we downloaded a couple. But you definitely want to get a data set that you are passionate about asking questions. So the second thing you need is questions. And the third thing you need is some sort of something to analyze the data in, whether it be R or Tableau or Python. If you want to get started with R, I have a bunch of YouTube videos out there with my name on them for intro to programming in R. My co-founder, Jackie Kozel, literally wrote the book on data wrangling in Python. And I'm sure there are lots of people here who can help you with Tableau.
Yes.
But really, it's data and a question is what you need. I did a data project, weirdly not for fun, but for work, but not really for work, on GDELT, which is a database of events that have been cataloged in a journalistic effort. And I wanted to know if countries had relationships based on these events. And so I used my background, which is network science, to try and figure out, okay, well, I have all these events and I have countries listed with these events. Can I study how these countries are connected to each other and how those connections change? And so created an app in Shiny to do just that. And now that's out on the Shiny user showcase. But yeah, really you just need data, a question, and a drive to answer that question.
Sure. I think that's true too, not just for getting into data, but it's getting into technology in general. I joke around that we are the tinkerers of the world, right? If you, just like in anything else, if you would like to know how to do something better, the more you practice at it, the better you will become. So, you know, if it seems daunting to start out with going and grabbing a data set and trying to figure out the tools and that type of things, I think that a lot of what Catherine was talking about is very relevant, right? You can start out with where your strength is. So the more you kind of say, all right, I want to do this and I want to do that, it's one thing to have an idea that you would like to do something, and it's another thing to recognize where your natural aptitudes align and refine those as well. And recognize that, you know, for me, to be honest, some of the stuff that real data scientists do, because I am absolutely not one, is stunning. It's absolutely stunning. The mathematical theories that you were kind of working through, or at least talking to, because it looked like math to me and I wasn't sure. It's unbelievable, but you don't have to be a genius to be successful in this area. You just have to know where your strength is, and you need to build your strength and your natural aptitude, and recognize that you don't have to really kind of put round pegs in square holes or square pegs in round holes, or however that goes, right? So I would strongly encourage that if you have an interest in getting into anything that you are not yet in, organically building your skills through projects is true. 100 times over what you said, and apply it to any technology, any idea, any philosophy. The more you practice, the better it will get. Like drawing.
Yes, exactly. I would also argue that math is I totally agree with that. And I also argue that math is a sport. Practice is what makes you good at it. The only reason I ever found out that I was good at math was because there was this girl in my math class in high school that I hated. And the only way I could get back at her was get a better grade. She apparently had this fancy calculator that did all the equations for her, and I didn't know that until the end of the class, and I still got a better grade. But lots of hard work.
It always comes from solving a problem. I had a situation where, from a visualization perspective, I had to figure out, because I work in federal, so everything is blue, gray, and red. There's no other colors. So I needed a graph to use the colors blue, gray, and red, and then I wanted to repeat afterwards. And so I'm using JavaScript, and I'm a photo major, so I don't actually know what's in JavaScript. So I'm working through it, and I come home and I tell my husband, I'm like, I worked on this problem all day, and I'm so proud of it, I want to put it on the fridge. And he's like, okay. So I start talking to him about it, and he looks at me and goes, Emily, did you know that you wrote the function for modulus? And I said, what? And he's like, well, it's kind of where you assess a number, and then you base it down, and then you did that, and you assigned a color to the number. And I went, oh, is there an easier way to do that? And he's like, yeah, it's called a percent sign. And I was like, oh, that would have been good to know this morning. And that's how you learn these things. Any other questions?
Okay, thanks. And it's more an extension of what you, what you were already saying. Two things. One, as far as data set, you are the source of a lot of data. So if you can't find an interest, hopefully you're interested in yourself. It's called quantified data. So like, for instance, I moved back to DC about a year ago, went car free, and I said, I wonder what my Metro usage looks like. I can download my Metro data from my Metro cards and then get in Tableau and plot it and see what I did. And that sort of thing. And so, you know, there's your own data that you can work with. But the other thing too is that a lot of these tools are free. Of course, R is based on open source and it's free, but Tableau, there's a free version. ClickView, there's a free version. SAS, there's a free version. So don't let dollar signs stop you. You can do that too.
I guess this is a question for all of you, but more specifically those who didn't come from a very technological background. I studied physics, so I mean, I dabbled in technology a little bit, but at the end of the day, I really didn't have more than like 2 projects worth of exposure to technical skills. So I was wondering what made you decide to get into data, and how did you kind of get started with learning those skills?
So I'll start. So I actually studied I studied studio art as my major in school, but I minored in computer science. I went to liberal arts school, so there wasn't a graphic design program, even though that's what I knew I wanted to do. So I did get like a little bit enough to be dangerous in like C++ and Java. Not dangerous, let's rephrase that. To communicate with developers. Like I could just write a function, an if statement or whatever. But then I can't really actually make things. But the way I kind of got into data is that graphic design can be almost like perceived as a superficial, like at the end of a project, you come in and you kind of like polish other people's ideas. And I had my own ideas and a different way of thinking about things that I thought would be better in many cases. So when someone else would bring me their analysis and their reports and say, make this chart, I would make that chart, but then also try it in 4 other ways and show them, you know, maybe one of these would work better. So essentially at like the junior level, it's like saying, yes, here's what you asked for, but here's some other things that you might consider that work better. And doing that and kind of like learning the different tools. Like when I got Tableau for the first time, I've been using Excel and Deltagraph. I don't know if anyone has ever used Deltagraph, but you're lucky you haven't.
Where are you going?
Yeah. But when I got Tableau, it was like the first time where I could use something that was much more user-friendly. It didn't require coding, and it looked amazing and was interactive at the same time. And so I just kind of like immersed myself in learning how to do that, bought a bunch of books, and found any instance where like I could say yes, and here's 3 other better ways to do it, and learned kind of on my own that way.
So for me, I'm a little on the harder technology side, and I joke around with people. I mean, obviously, I have a non-technical degree, and then my minor was rather unfortunately for me, it was not computer science. It was the major used to be called OCLD, which was actually very appropriately named, but it was Occupational Communications, Learning and Design, and it was actually around psychology and marketing. And so that really led me into graphics design. Because when you get right down to it, I can build the most functional system ever. But if you have to take 50 clicks to get to the place where you see the information that you want, then you won't do it. And then what? You know, everybody just wasted their time, they wasted their money. I might have wasted, depending on how we implemented, 4 years of my life. But when you get right down to it, it really is, I subscribe very, very strongly to a Kaizen principle, which is change for continuous improvement, right? Change for the better. And so when you get right down to it, it's every day you can do a little bit better than you did yesterday, and you can do a little bit more than you did yesterday. And you can be assertive about what you're doing and how you think that looks. And when I look at the way data has evolved, and I mean, we're at a data group, right? And we're talking a lot about visualization of data, but there's an entire world of data that has nothing to do with visualization. And as much as I love Tableau, I have to admit that I roll my eyes every time a client's like, Tableau? And I'm like, you know what? If I was just giving you an Excel data set, then Tableau would be awesome. But I'm bringing together 15 sources. So somehow we have to go through the pattern matching and the exception reporting and the data management to get you to a point where you could pop Tableau on and make some pretty visualizations without going, well, this looks great, except for these 15 things over here that we just grouped in a group because we didn't know what to do with them because we think it's just that data, right? At some point, there's a whole part of data that is deeply technical. I got my start in technology because I wanted to be better than my brother, who went to RPI, and he specializes in artificial intelligence on the hardware side. So Thanksgiving was brutal. It was like, hey, Emily, how's your creative writing class going? And it was like, how's your 5th year of school? Shut up. And so at one point it was like, I'm gonna learn Flash, because before Apple killed Flash, Flash was a viable training mechanism for things. I wanted to get into building training software. And I had to learn ActionScript, which looked a lot like JavaScript. And I'm a very strong believer in negative thought. And I don't mean like, wow, this shirt looks awful on me. I mean it like, the idea that every good idea has bad components to it. And good ideas are actually only known to you because you had a lot of really bad ideas beforehand. And so then you're like, I think this is a good idea because it's better than all the bad ideas I just had. And then maybe 3 months later, you're like, wait, this is a better idea. This is a good idea. And then your good idea looks like a bad idea again 3 months later. So I engage with my groups very, very tightly in documenting what's not working. There's a trend in technology where people are writing white papers on stuff that didn't work. And I love it. Because at this point, I've been spending 15 years breaking technology. Like I have this whole new philosophy on how to manage data because the way I was doing it before just sucked. And I got tired of the O&M, and I got tired of apologizing for how it didn't work. So the way to learn technology is to kind of mess it up. Right? It's just to do it wrong and then look at it and be like, oh, I'm not particularly proud of that. You know? And my husband is a coder, and he's hysterical. He'll come by and go, oh, I wrote this awful code 6 months ago. And I'm like, really? Did it work?
And he's like, yeah, but it was ugly, and I just rewrote it, and now it's only one line. And I'm like, okay, cool. But the idea is that you look at yourself and you say, I'm gonna be better. Instead of looking at everybody else and saying, I want that, right? You say, what can I do that's better? And because I know where you work, right? Don't let people put you in boxes you don't want to be in. Okay, I suspect you don't work there anymore. So, if you don't want to make PowerPoint presentations, stop making PowerPoint presentations. If you don't want to order the food for the office, stop ordering the food for the office. If you don't want to organize a charity event, don't organize a charity event. And when you're standing around and there's 6 guys standing around and they say to you, because this has happened to me before, hey Emily, do you want to organize the golf tournament? I was like, no, why would I want to do that? I don't play golf. And it was like, well, and I was like, well, what? Right? And that's what you have to do. Man your own box. Build your box, and then you sit in it, and you say, this is my box. And you're not putting anything in it I don't want, and you're not putting me in any box I don't want to be in. And then you learn from yourself. And you learn from those around you.
That's like the most inspiring stuff.
I lost for a living.
Oh my god. So now I think I thought I had something to say like 5 minutes ago, but now I'm like, wow.
I do grandma.
So I'm gonna try to answer this question, but don't hold me up to that level. So I've always been inspired by meaningful questions. Like I talk about social justice, but really I just want to make the world a better place. I know that sounds really naive and idealistic, but that's what I am. So okay, fine. So
I actually think it's really good. I think it's great.
So, all right, good. I have some affirmation here, so that's reassuring. But so I use data and I use technology in ways that are tools to be able to answer questions that I think are meaningful to be able to achieve that goal of increasing social justice, of making the world better, of finding solutions to problems that have been intractable for so long. And a lot of these problems are issues that not only affected women, they've affected, all kinds of groups that have been kind of left behind as we move into like a frankly like capitalistic and certain kind of society where you have people who are perfectly capable of succeeding and doing well and haven't been given that opportunity. So I use data to be able to think about how we can create those opportunities and how we can know if those opportunities have been created. So I'm probably like the ugly programmer. Like I learn something new every day, which is really helpful. But I'm still kind of like building up my programming skills. I don't tell my husband this, but I have an ex-boyfriend who was teaching me C, and that was really useful. But then we broke up, so then I stopped. And my background is I was like always kind of naturally a math nerd. Honestly, since we were telling origin stories, it was like in 2nd grade, I thought writing numbers was a lot easier than writing letters. So I just liked math more. But I like math, and I did AP Calc in my junior year of high school, and then they ran out of math for me. And then in college, I went to a liberal arts program and didn't really have much technical opportunities. It was a lot of, liberal arts kind of courses, and that was fine. So then when I went to my master's, I was like, I want to build up those technical skills. I need to fill in this kind of like skill deficit in a sense, and that was where I focused there. But it was always motivated by the fact that these skills were going to be able to help me answer these questions that I thought were important about society. And that was kind of my driving motivation throughout all of this. And I love, I love like playing around with like data for the sake of data. I think it's really exciting and stuff. But I honestly don't do that enough because I'm kind of often sort of busy like trying to figure out what to do next about these kinds of bigger issues that I somehow think I might make some dent in affecting, which is still, again, idealistic, naive, but I think it's a worthwhile way to kind of dedicate my time. So.
Wow. So I started out I bounced around in college doing everything because I was paying for my own way, and I decided I was going to have a major that I liked. And I went from computer programming to business to applied math. But in applied math, it was there wasn't a lot of computer stuff. We had like one programming class we had to take. However, I got to work on a research project, and the research project had to do with Facebook data, which I thought was awesome because I love Facebook. And so I was looking at this data and then trying to just answer questions about it. And really learning the programming skills was based on trying to figure out these questions. Turns out that I'm pretty good at programming. And continued with that in my master's and my PhD in both MATLAB and R. And now I taught myself Scala in the last month because we now work with huge data and R kind of pickups on it. But yeah, so mostly for the purpose.
Thank you so much, you guys. So just to flag, it is 7:30, so we projected that it would be at around 7:30 or so we would wrap up, but we would be willing to stick around and do the small group discussion if anybody is interested in that. So if you do want to stick around, would you say? Oh yeah, I guess, raise your hand if you would be interested in sticking around for maybe a 20, 30 minute small group discussion. Cool. I think we got at least like 2 groups, so we can take like a 5-minute break. Thank you guys so much. And then we'll need a little bit of help to turn some of the chairs on, and then just sit in one of those areas.
I didn't know what I was gonna do.